The FBI's gang designation has caused real lasting harm to the lives of the Juggalos. Parents have lost custody of their kids. They've been fired from jobs. They've been denied housing. They've been subjected to illegal searches and sometimes added to a gang database simply for walking down the street wearing an ICP t-shirt. That, my friends, is punishing our fans for representing us. That's like insane if you think about it.
I saw the new Rick and Morty trailer.
Oh, okay. I have not heard the voices yet. I'm kind of scared to click on the link.
I don't know who they found, but they nailed it. If you didn't know,
can I posit a theory? AI.
Maybe.
Has Justin Roiland said enough words in the voices of Rick and Morty that you could fucking AI your way out of this whole thing?
That might be, because last I checked, they had not announced the names of the voice actors, and they were being kind of hush about it.
Oh my God.
What if that is what they're doing?
Well, dude, that'd be fucking weird.
That opens a whole new can of worms of like,
oh God,
we removed the person, but his voice will live on.
That's like just beautiful and terrifying in so many ways. And if it can happen to Justin Roiland, like, just why AI should just take over us, Cal. We've done 45 episodes of this. Instead of me having to listen to Imagine Dragons and have us comment on it, can we just take a month off and have AI do that for us? It'd probably do a better job, honestly.
It's not me. It's an AI, Morty. It's an AI. Oh, gee, Rick, they took you over with an AI?
Dude, that's exactly the sort of thing they would make fun of and leave you ambiguous as to what actually is happening because it's germane to the philosophy of the show. So, all right, I should have even fucking mentioned that. Now I'm gonna watch the entire next season with suspicion. All right, that's as good of a spot as any. Welcome to Polishing Turds with Nick and Cal. My name is Nick.
And I'm Cal.
And this is the show where we take a deep dive into the wonderful world of bad music. And here we are, folks. The 6 Cal and Nick Joker's card will finally be revealed. Part 6 of our insanely long series on the insanely insane clown posse. Oh my God, Cal.
Yep, we're getting there, man.
We're at the home stretch.
Yeah, it's been a long, wild ride.
It sure has. You might even say a carnival ride.
Yes. These guys are ridiculous. They are the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, and there's so much shit. Like, we're not going to be able to get into it all. It's exactly like Rob Bruce's philosophy for the gathering. Like, so much to do, you can't do it all. I'm coming to realize, like, I'm not going to get to talk about all the things I wanted to, and that's okay. You know, discover for yourselves, guys. These guys just have a very fascinating oeuvre, and they're such interesting and dynamic people.
Violent J and Shaggy are still like this all the time, 24/7. So they're going to be making new stories as we try and make this series.
I hope they live to like Mitch McConnell age and are like just doing this shit in their 80s and like somehow finding ways to still juggalo it up in their fucking walkers and rocking chairs.
Nobody knows even what clowns actually are anymore. It's such an old relic by the time they're still doing this.
People in the future are going to think that all clowns wore like black and white evil makeup and like looked really evil. It's going to be honestly like genuinely confusing to future generations to think that like our grandparents and parents used to like clowns.
Right. It's like if you found out like zombies used to be a comedy thing.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we get going, because today is going to be a pretty heavy episode, I got to say, Cal, let's, why don't you talk about what Fagos we got before us on this fine evening?
Is this even a Faygo? They don't have their name on it.
So Faygo has a kind of a side brand called Ohana, and what you are holding is Ohana Punch.
Like Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah, vaguely appropriating Hawaiian culture.
So we've got Ohana Punch, non-carbonated beverage, and then we've got 60/40 grapefruit lime soda pop. Like, I feel like this has got to taste pretty close to Twist, but
yeah, you would think, but like I feel like the grapefruit angle, like that sounds more like old people favorite.
I fucking love grapefruit though, man. I gotta dive into this.
Okay, let's do it. All right, I'll try the Ohana first. Okay, I'm picturing personally another Hawaiian type punchy product that I used to enjoy as a child. But hey, it's all right.
So with this one, I genuinely, I think I'll do this weekend. I want to try this right after a sip of Twist and see if there's any discernible difference at all.
It's that close.
Right now, yeah, but it's been 2 weeks since I had the Twist, so
okay.
Maybe I'm insulting the subtleties of Faygo soda, and a Juggalo is going to get pissed off at me.
Somewhere, some Juggalo Faygo connoisseur is like just thumbing his nose at like how ignorant.
This basically tastes like Twist to me, but I don't know. It's like if you give someone a bunch of blue cheese and they don't know anything about blue cheese, it all just tastes like blue cheese. So maybe I'm being ignorant.
All right, fair. Well, Cal, with that, I think we've exhausted what Quick Trip has to offer in terms of Faygo. So I really might have to drive to Michigan if I want to try. I really want to try Rock and Rye. All right, I'm super disappointed that there's a rye-based soda out there and no one's selling it here in Wisconsin.
Right. I fucking love rye too, in like anything.
Yeah.
Rye chips, rye whiskey,
rye bread.
Yeah, rye bread. Rye toast.
Now I'm thinking of like a little like hors d'oeuvres at like somebody's wedding or something.
Mm-hmm.
All right, folks, let's get into this episode. And today is going to be another unusual one. You see, for this episode, we're going to take another break from ICP's discography to talk about a controversy that's unlike anything else we've ever covered. Indeed, unlike anything else that's really ever happened in American music. For in addition to being unique in so many colorful ways, Insane Clown Posse are the only band in history whose fan base was labeled as a gang by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And they are also the only band ever to sue the FBI for just such a designation. So, Cal, before you read this script, before I told you like little bits and pieces about this controversy, if I had just thrown out the idea that Juggalos are considered a gang by law enforcement, what would you have thought of that?
I don't know, man. Like, to be a gang, you have to be doing some sort of organized crime, right? Yeah. And I don't think these guys organize anything outside the gathering.
I mean, they're not even the ones organizing that. It's like you think of organization and Juggalos do not go hand in hand.
No, by nature they are chaotic.
Yeah, like just like who would be the Stringer Bell of Juggalos? Like who's like fucking enforcing this shit and make sure everything is being done by, secret logbooks.
Yeah, to me, just outside perspective looking in, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
All right. Well, we are going to meet a lot of voices from law enforcement at various levels who would disagree with that assessment.
Yeah, big surprise that they disagree with me.
Like, if cop bashing is your thing, this is going to be a very fun and also very frustrating episode for you. I know that, Cal, I'm personally going to have a number of moments where I might just fucking fly off the handle. It's a good thing that your kids aren't in the house today. I'll just say that.
I'll just say one time right now, we acknowledge that it's a hard job.
Yeah.
But holy shit.
Oh, for sure, yes. But
learn to do it well sometimes.
This is just... this is a misunderstanding, if I'm being kind, of the highest order. And we'll get to maybe some of the reasons why this may have happened. Now, at first glance, the idea of a legal fight between a pair of clown rappers and the nation's top law enforcement agency, you might say that seems a little bit silly. But in reality, this is no joke. See, the FBI's decision to include Juggalos in their official list of gangs had very serious consequences, not just for ICP and psychopathic records, but for thousands of real, breathing people across the country. And even worse, it set a legal precedent that effectively criminalizes the appreciation of a music artist, making a mockery of our right to free speech. And this is a messy drama, one born of fear and ignorance toward a misunderstood subculture, combined with the perverse incentives of law enforcement and the lazy sensationalism of media. All of these things add up to a story that's so outlandish, I had to devote the better part of an episode to it. And if this is all sounding like a little too boring and arcane for you, don't worry, folks. I'm going to make sure that you get some dessert to go with your vegetables. You see, in the middle of this episode, I made a calculated decision that we're gonna take a break from all of this, like fucking law enforcement, Nick Vitale legal lecture shit, and we're gonna do what we do and take a look at some ridiculous ICP tunes. And honestly, like I've saved like some of the very best too for this little
Hell
break.
yeah.
That's going to be a lot of fun. And then at the end of the episode, we're going to do something that I've kind of been promising throughout the series. We are going to share the results of our exclusive Juggalo Survey. We interviewed about 24 Juggalos, sent them a questionnaire, just trying to understand who these people are, what their connection to ICP is, how it's affected their lives. And you're going to get a real look at least some Juggalos, and spoiler alert, they're not gangsters, at least not these ones. Cal, is there anything that you're curious about from this survey or from this story in general?
I don't know. I'm kind of like a legal dumbass in the first place. So I think I'm just going to, unless you're talking bird law, but I'm just going to...
He's an aviary expert, boys.
But I'm going to sit and... I stole that from Sonny, by the way.
Of course.
I am going to sit and be a sponge, and I don't know. I guess I'm just curious how the FBI got here, because we like to think of them as so all-powerful and omniscient, and they're made up of people that are just as dumb as all the rest of us.
Yeah, I mean...
just with more resources. Exactly.
And, resources are going to be a part of this story and how it plays out. But we'll definitely be painting a picture. So, just get your absorption pores ready. That was a horrible, mangled attempt to keep the sponge metaphor going, but we're going to keep rolling. All right. So how did this start? Well, on October 21st, 2011, the FBI released its annual National Gang Threat Assessment, a report which aims to provide an overview of gang activity and trends across the United States. So in addition to documenting the dangers of well-known gangs such as the Bloods, Crips, and MS-13, this report also introduced a new gang causing havoc across America, the Juggalos.
See, it's already so dumb. Anyone who knows anything about anything. Can you imagine the Juggalos tangling with MS-13? Sorry, Juggalos, you would lose. I'm sorry.
You're going to hear stories where Juggalos are allegedly making alliances with the Bloods and the Crips, according to cops. It's so badly absurd.
Can you imagine being like a lifelong Blood and you're just, this real rough guy, and this dude in clown makeup walks up.
He shows up in the barbershop like, yo, wicked clown shit, yo.
Help me out. We've seen in every crime show what happens to that guy.
Yeah, dude. He's like the first guy in the movie to get shot. Like that. Oh, God. But no, this is real. I've read most of this report, as well as another one that I can't wait to talk about. And on page 22 of the National Gang Threat Assessment Report for 2011, the Juggalos are given their own subheading. They are described as, quote, a loosely organized hybrid gang that is, quote, rapidly expanding into many U.S. communities.
A hybrid gang.
So, let's get into some definitions first, because, Cal, you posited your idea of what a gang is, and I think that sounds like a very common sense notion, but this is what defines a gang according to the FBI. The first attribute is association of 3 or more individuals. So 2 dudes you and I are not a gang.
If we added one person to this podcast, though,
we could become a gang. The second thing we would have to do is whose members collectively identify themselves by adopting a group identity which they use to create an atmosphere of fear or intimidation, frequently by employing one or more of the following: a common name, slogan, identifying sign, symbol, tattoo, or other physical marking, style or color of clothing, hairstyle, hand sign, or graffiti.
all right, we're fitting the definition. Gratitude is always on trend is our phrase of intimidation.
Yes, and you and I frequently run around town tagging, polishing turds, rules across the streets. We both have like little turd emoji prison tattoos that we drew ourselves on our knuckles, as everybody knows. So yeah, we're real like fucking hard ass motherfuckers right now. The third attribute is whose purpose in part is to engage in criminal activity and which uses violence or intimidation to further its criminal objectives.
I mean, crimes against music, I guess.
I mean, almost all of the federal crimes we've committed in the past were just, more into the DEA's division than the FBI's. But, we're nitpicking here. Fourth, whose members engage in criminal activity or acts of juvenile delinquency that, if committed by an adult, would be crimes with the intent to enhance or preserve the association's power, reputation, or economic resources. All kidding aside, you could describe Raiders fans as doing most of this shit so far.
Yep.
And then the fifth qualification, the association may also possess some of the following characteristics. And then a few bullet points. Members may employ rules for joining and operating within the association. Members may meet on a recurring basis. Oh, the gathering of the Juggalos. Yep. Whoa. The association may provide physical protection of its members from others. The association may seek to exercise control over a particular geographic location or region, or it may simply defend its perceived interests against rivals. And the association may have an identifiable structure.
You could classify a particularly aggressive Girl Scout troop as a gang, in theory.
Dude, the Girl Scouts are like the hardest motherfucking gangsters of today. Now, let's go back to that idea of a loosely organized hybrid gang. Because when I first read that, I thought that could be anything or anyone. Yeah. That could mean anything you want.
But hybrids are more dangerous. It's like a hybrid weed.
No, bro. It's a hybrid theory. In this report, though, it defines hybrid gangs as, quote, non-traditional gangs with multiple affiliations, which are, quote, fluid in structure, yet tend to adopt similar characteristics of larger urban gangs. Again, it's not a very precise definition.
No.
But the idea is, you could be a member of, the Outlaws and MS-13 if you really wanted to.
It kind of reads like a guy going it's kind of like a gang, but not really a gang. That's how I feel about that definition. And
again, part of the reason that gangs exist as a category of law enforcement is, because they want to give them longer sentences. It's a tool for prosecutors to lock up people that they perceive as more dangerous for longer periods of time. And so they have every incentive to make the net as wide as possible. Mm-hmm. And so the report goes on to describe what this Juggalo gang is all about. And I'm going to do another quote here. Most crimes committed by Juggalos are sporadic, disorganized, individualistic, and often involve simple assault, personal drug use and possession, petty theft, and vandalism. However, open source reporting suggests that a small number of Juggalos are forming more organized subsets and engaging in more gang-like criminal activity such as felony assaults, thefts, robberies, and drug sales. Now, what do you make of that at first glance, Cal?
Well, I don't know. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I guess we'll have to find out what you've uncovered.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the first part, like, sporadic,
for sure.
individualistic, mostly involving drug use and petty theft. Like, yeah, I think here's a thing I want to get off the bat. Do individual Juggalos commit crime?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, Jay and Shaggy would be the very first to acknowledge that, you know? And does it happen a lot? Probably. Are Juggalos more likely to commit a crime than the average individual?
Yeah, probably.
Probably.
We've kind of danced around it, outright said it, but then also tried to be empathetic. They're usually lower income individuals who have faced some type of hardship in their life. And statistically, that person is more likely to commit crimes, Juggalo or not.
Yes, absolutely, Cal. Like, and you make a good point there, is that they are connected into a social ecosystem and intersected with class and demographics and poverty and race and all these types of things that add up to crime in this country. But that is a far cry from actually being an organized gang on the level of something that belongs in the same conversation as MS-13 and the fucking Crips.
For sure.
So the report goes on to say that, quote, Juggalos' disorganization and lack of structure within their groups, coupled with their transient nature, makes it difficult to classify them and identify their members and migration patterns. What are they, fucking geese?
It's the pelican in San Pablo Bay.
So if their migration patterns are so sporadic and they are disorganized and lack structure, to me, I don't know, that seems to kind of cut against this idea that they're a gang.
Yeah, and I'm with you. That's the problem with the hybrid definition.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a loosely organized version of an organized gang. What does that fucking mean?
It's like when I try to describe this podcast to people, it's like, I don't want to box us in. So it's like, well, we're like music history, but like also kind of comedy. And like, there's a real strong storytelling angle, but like we incorporate a lot of like, social ideas. Like really it's just like two dudes sticking around.
We just play a bad song and then talk about all the stuff that comes to mind.
So you may be wondering, like, what evidence does the FBI cite for Juggalos being a gang? Well, the report actually only cites two, like, real-life instances of Juggalos committing crimes. They mention these very briefly. Like, you have to really go into the footnotes and dig into the actual stories to understand what actually happened. And I want to, like, kind of take some time to do that here. So the first instance that the report cites happened in January of 2010, and this involved two teenagers in Corvallis, Oregon, who were arrested. Yeah.
I lived there for a little bit.
Yeah, right on. So these two teenagers that Cal may have run into at some point or another were arrested for assaulting two different men. One of the guys that they assaulted was a bisexual man who they apparently knew, had some kind of acquaintanceship with, and one of the assailants claimed that this victim had made sexual advances on him. And then the other guy that they assaulted was a homeless man who apparently owed one of them $20 for a bag of weed. In terms of like, okay, well, how does this connect it to Juggalos at all? Like, which branch of the National Juggalo organization authorized this hit?
Did Violent J himself arrange this?
Like, yo, man.
Yo, go beat that guy up. Show him what we're about.
Fuck that guy. He ripped you off of weed. You fucking rip his arm off, bitch. And in terms of the evidence, there is exactly one sentence in the newspaper article that reads, quote, Lieutenant Tim Brewer of the Corvallis Police Department said investigators have tied Appold and Griffin, those are the two assailants, to a local gang that refers to themselves as Juggalos.
Well, if Tim Brewer says it, it's true.
And we're going to see this as a recurring theme, is that the evidence usually amounts to "this cop said."
Right.
You know? But yeah, but other than that, like, there's no mention of anything related to Juggalos. Like, they didn't, like, spray paint, like, Wicked Clown on a guy's shirt or something.
Carve Shaggy 2 Dope into his chest.
Yeah. You know,
never
like,
forget that we don't clown around.
like, really, like, these are just, like, two dick bags.
Yeah.
You know, that just, you know, that belong in jail, and, you know, they happen to allegedly be Juggalos, and that just, you know, but that doesn't prove anything, really. And so the second story that this report cites actually takes place in a northwestern city that I used to live in.
Weird.
This is a very weird.
Maybe this is why we like him so much, you know?
Yeah. It's just the synchronicity of the universe, Cal. This happened in January in 2011 in Seattle, Washington, where a teenager named Shane Willis, who was, quote, dressed as a juggalo, according to the Seattle PI, this guy shot and wounded 2 other teens after an argument on a public trail.
And what they mean by that, he had Jinko jeans on. That's it.
So actually, the truth is even dumber, Cal. Wait till we get to it. So apparently this Willis guy, he was walking alone late at night when he spotted 2 other teenagers, one of which was wearing a blue bandana. Willis asked this guy if he was with the Crips. The guy said no. This apparently led to some kind of argument where Willis took out a gun and fired a single shot that wounded both teenagers. So I'm trying to recall which ICP song tells people to do that. Just that. If someone's wearing the wrong colors, but
it's called "Shoot People with Blue Bandanas." It was on. It's a B-side.
Oh yeah, it's on the Forgotten Freshness discs. So Willis had taken the gun from his stepfather's garage, and according to the Seattle newspaper, quote, according to the charging documents, Willis went on to claim he previously identified as a juggalo. Pavlovich, that's one of the police guy, noted that Willis appeared to still be involved in the gang.
Ooh, once you're in, you can't get out.
Yeah, they kill you. Yeah, and again, according to charging documents, like, we're not hearing this from Willis, you know, or any of his friends or anything like that. And then the story also says, quote, in addition to Juggalo tattoos and a wallet carrying the Insane Clown Posse logo, Willis was dressed in a suit and fedora, common Juggalo garb, at the time of the shooting, Pavlovich said.
What? I've watched a lot of gathering footage, and I'm not following you.
Like, Juggalos, help me out. Like, do you guys really, you know, walk around in fedoras and suits? Like, I know this was 2011, you know, but like...
It's like he watched a little bit of Big Money Hustlers and thought Shaggy's character was how they dress. For real.
That's the only possible explanation. Like, it's, again, like, just paper thin evidence at best. And this makes it into an FBI report. And again, I am diving deep into these stories for a reason. You are going to see a pattern throughout this episode that, you know, the law enforcement will say one thing, and then when you actually kind of fact check it, you realize it's nah.
Right.
But before we get into the aftermath of the 2011 report, it's worth understanding just how we got there in the first place. Now, if you guys remember, all the way back in episode 1, it is somewhat ironically true that before these guys were ever wearing clown makeup, ICP were an actual street gang, or at least attempted to be a street gang.
Mm-hmm.
But still, the idea that Juggalos today are an organized, structured entity that plans crimes on a mass scale is pure fantasy. I hate to give away the game right here.
Well,
but
it's, yeah, because it's so silly. It's like, oh, a bunch of guys are dressing up in clown makeup and doing crimes. Like, when they were actual criminals, they weren't even doing this wicked shit gimmick yet.
Yeah.
They were just, like you just said, it was like 3 or 4 dumbasses, and they weren't very good at it.
Yeah. And like, just like, they definitely weren't doing anything that would have been merited, probably even on a Detroit, you know, level police report.
Right.
But nonetheless, ICP's violent lyrics have been a lightning rod for criticism since the band came to prominence in the 90s. For example, after the horrific Columbine shooting, some media outlets tried to connect ICP to shooters Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, even though by all accounts neither of them were juggalos. But then again, quotes like this from Violent J probably didn't help. If those two F-words in trench coats had been juggalos, they would have gotten the whole damn school.
Come on, Jay.
I feel guilty for wanting to laugh at that because it's so it's so awful that
yeah, it's the complete wrong thing to say.
It's like I'm laughing at the fact that somebody would have deigned to say that at all. Like, he's kind of lucky the internet, like social media wasn't a thing back then.
Oh God, yeah.
like come on, man.
Social media lights you up for stuff like this now.
Yeah, you gotta be like perfect to a T, man.
Yep.
Now, in his defense, later in that same interview, he kind of offered a more measured response, like saying essentially that, his music can't be blamed for any potential violence in the real world. And his reasoning is that, like, well, look, we're not on MTV. We're not forcing our music on anyone. It's clearly entertainment. And, you make of it what you will.
Yeah, I mean, I don't follow his logic, but I agree entirely that music doesn't cause this stuff.
Yeah. And this was a whole hysteria that happened, after Columbine, and that Marilyn Manson took the brunt of it.
Mm-hmm.
But there was this idea that, violent lyrics, violent video games, violent movies, all of that was inspiring, people who clearly had psychotic tendencies and were victims of possible bullying and had easy access to guns because this is America, that like somehow the media shit was the problem.
I don't for 1 second believe the media someone consumes makes them violent in real life. It is not an argument I've ever subscribed to.
I mean, I think at best it could be someone with psychotic tendencies could be more drawn to more violent music and lyrics, but like there is clearly a pre-existing condition. Like you cannot take like just an absolutely perfect, beautiful unicorn of a 5-year-old and take him to an ICP concert and suddenly he's like robbing gas stations. Like I do not think the human mind is that malleable.
He was raised on Veggie Tales. He wasn't ready for ICP. It warped him.
But still, like rhetoric like this in the media has an effect. And there's kind of a little bit of evidence in this, in that in 2004, a Colorado Springs school district banned all ICP-related clothing, claiming that it was connected to violence.
I mean, I know it's easy in hindsight, and it was all a big overreaction. But there was stuff specifically in their lyrics, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great. And discovering that as a parent or a school administrator, and knowing that a 12-year-old is listening to that, I understand why someone would freak out over something like that, for sure.
I mean, now we live in 2023 where they can access anything they want no matter what you do. So.
Yeah, like.
But at the time, I guess I can get where they're coming from. I don't agree with it.
This is only a few years removed from the V-chip, which was supposed to, like, save television and save the youth from all the sex and violence that's brainwashing the public. But I could also see that, like, okay, every school has like a share of like 1% total irredeemable troublemakers. And if you notice that like of that 1%, like 30% are wearing Insane Clown Posse t-shirts, you might be forgiven for making a connection there.
Yeah.
And then starting in the mid-2000s, there was an increasing trend of media outlets reporting on crimes allegedly committed by juggalos, with juggalos themselves now referred to as a gang. Oftentimes, the only evidence of a juggalo connection comes from the police themselves, a claim that is usually accepted at face value by journalists. And the first city where this like really kind of took off was Salt Lake City, Utah.
Tracks.
Yeah, like just you think these guys are gonna go a little hard to the right every now and then. So the SLC cops start documenting a number of petty crimes that are committed by juggalos, And they seem to be the first police department that was actually tracking juggalos as if they were a gang. Like they would have like a fucking database of juggalos.
Does Salt Lake City have a large actual gang presence? I mean, maybe this is like, they're just excited. It's their first gang.
Well, you ever seen SLC Punk? Like there's a Salt Lake City. Like I've been there a couple of times. I've never been to the rough parts of Salt Lake City. I'm sure they exist. And there is an underworld. Someone I met in Salt Lake City talks about what she called the coffee to heroin pipeline.
Okay.
Which what that means is, kids who grow up in these super strict Mormon families, if they don't fit into those families for whatever reason, these highly conservative, controlling families, maybe the 11th out of 13 sons happens to be gay, and like the conversion therapy just isn't taking for some reason, that kid gets kicked out of the house. He ends up homeless on the street of Salt Lake City, and they taste the pleasures of coffee for the first time, and
what else have I been lied to about?
Before you know it, they're on the fucking streets, and we're making light of it, but like this actually happens to a lot of people.
We see a mini version of that with plenty of kids we knew in rural Wisconsin.
Yeah, 100%. Like, kids that are too sheltered, once they get exposed, like just let loose in the wild.
Right, it's like why you can't release a captivity penguin or something.
Yeah, 100%. So let's look at like some other stories that media outlets start reporting on in the mid-2000s. So in 2006, 5 people in Tacoma, Washington were arrested in connection with a series of beatings and robberies that injured multiple victims. The suspects were apparently carrying machetes and hatchets, and what is significant about this is that this was reported as a Juggalo crime. The headline in the Associated Press read, quote, 5 fans of group Insane Clown Posse charged in park attacks.
What a weird thing to focus on.
Yeah.
Like of all the ways to describe somebody. Fans of Insane Clown Posse.
As if that is the proximate causal motive for the beatings. Like these are probably just like 5 honor students who were getting ready for Glee Club, and somehow somebody slipped them a Great Milenko CD, and before you know it, they were running around Tacoma with hatchets beating people up. It's really just kind of sensationalistic.
Yeah.
But you start to see more and more articles like this as you kind of look back through the mid-2000s. And basically what it does is it creates a feedback loop. So these articles report the crimes as Juggalo crimes because the police are saying that. People are asking the police, like, why do these kids do it? Well, we think it may have something to do with this insane clown posse that these kids are into. And so the reports get written up as Juggalo crimes caused by this Juggalo gang. And then other police departments read like, oh, holy shit, Juggalos are a big problem in our neighboring city. Like, we'll start to look out for them here. And then you just see more and more instances of police going out of their way to mention that, like, this or that guy that got arrested for an assault in a Denny's, like, was a Juggalo.
Here's why I think this is happening. Let's say you've had a rough, long week pulling people over and giving speeding tickets. You're tired. You have all of a sudden, you have 5 people with machetes attack some guy in your park.
Yeah.
You're going, God damn it, I don't want to work overtime. What's this clown band that Salt Lake City guys are using to get out of these cases? Like, I don't want to have to talk to the media. I'm just going to say it was clown related and I'm going to go home.
Yeah.
It's probably that stupid half the time.
It's also like, just, it's convenience. Like, oh, we can't control crime in this city. Like, these wicked clowns are trying to fuck up our shit.
Well, and that is one spot I've always empathized with police officers and detectives who have to answer to murders.
Yeah.
People go, why can't you solve this? Why can't... If you got fucking nothing and you want to go home and see your kids...
Yeah.
Blaming ICP is a logical thing to
do. Oh, for sure. Like... Reducing crime is very hard. Like,
yeah, people suck is the real reason any of this stuff happens.
Yeah, people suck. It's like a variety of institutions probably failed these kids, and some or all of them were probably born with some sort of mental or emotional disorder that made them more likely to do something like this. It's a variety of factors that doesn't make for a punchy headline,
Right.
you know, in the Tacoma paper, but oh, you got to be scared of this clown band is gonna sell some
Yep.
copies. So then in 2008, you get this Arizona newspaper that ran a story called, quote, "Fan or Gang," which is kind of a grammatically weird way of putting it.
Yeah.
Like fans or gangsters, fan club or gang.
Isn't one singular and one's plural?
Yeah. I don't get it. Maybe they just didn't have enough type space. But this article talked about this statewide conference of gang investigators that were meeting in Arizona to discuss the emerging Juggalo problem as they saw it. And it quoted one detective as saying, quote, "You've got 90% of them are true fans, but what we've found is small groups of gangs breaking off and calling themselves some kind of gang sect."
Face value, if you knew nothing about these guys, that's kind of plausible.
I don't doubt that, like, you know, there was probably some group of juggalos, you know, maybe in Phoenix or Seattle or wherever, that, like, you know, it's just like 3 16-year-olds who meet at the back of a 7-Eleven every day, and like, but suddenly, like, no, we're like the Hatchet Man crew now, you know, watch out for us, motherfuckers. Like,
They would have formed anything. They just lack imagination and stole the Hatchet Man.
yeah, I mean, they're basically just doing what Violent J and Shaggy did in Detroit back in the day. Like, that's totally plausible. But somehow, like, that gets morphed into, like, this idea that it's a national problem, that there's, like, some kind of, like, secret central entity that is controlling all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that just, like, we have not yet seen any evidence for that. Now, according to this story, to be perfectly fair, the cops in Arizona were kind of split on whether or not Juggalos should be considered a gang. But even so, like, just seeing that article, it's building the bricks that will form the wall of the edifice of this, like, Juggalo gang idea. But alas, it was not just the Arizona cops who were terrified of Juggalos. That very same year, in our home state of Wisconsin,
Oh, God.
our state's Department of Justice released a report titled Northeast Wisconsin Gang Assessment.
Anytime I hear of our state doing anything, I'm kind of like, oh God, what is it?
Cal, I've been waiting all episode to talk about this.
I think
part of it.
we're the Florida of the North, I think.
That's why they call us Mississippi, you
Yeah.
know, like, and this is like the scunniest shit you're ever going to fucking read. So, and I read this entire fucking thing, and let me just be clear off the bat. Cal and we have a habit of slipping too much esoteric Wisconsin geography into a podcast that has a fan base all over the world, and wherein Wisconsin geography is not germane to what we talk about hardly ever. But you guys are gonna have to give us a pass on this one, because it you know, I don't know what's going on in Salt Lake City. I don't know what's going on in Arizona. But I know a little bit of what's going on in our backyard. And when I read, like, some of the shit that you're about to read here, I like fucking lost my mind. And if you don't know anything about the state of Wisconsin, you should know. Cal, how many actual cities does Wisconsin have?
1, maybe 2 if you're being generous. Maybe 3 if you're being really generous.
Okay, all right. But of those, for like, okay, Milwaukee.
That's the only one that's actually
a legit
a city.
A city that actually does have a gang problem.
Yep.
Madison, an actual city.
That's the one I was on the fence. I'm like, it's a city light. It's a cute city.
A college town bordering on a city with some people, you know, really some gangsters running around.
Yeah,
but
there's
nothing.
some streets you don't want to be on, but not much.
Yeah, like I almost never fear for my life walking around downtown Madison, even late at night. But neither of those cities are in the northeast part of Wisconsin that is going to be the subject of this report. Like this is, for those of you who know the area, this is the Fox Valley area. This is Oshkosh, Appleton, Green Bay, Sheboygan. If you guys have seen the documentary series Making a Murderer, that's the general region we're talking about here.
It's probably my least favorite area of Wisconsin, by the way.
Yeah. Like these are just like homebody 65-year-old, retirees from their, local HVAC business who like want to just drink PBR and watch the Packers and get fat. That's all they care about in life.
Think about it's just alcoholism with a hint of meth. That's it.
Yeah. In terms of actual crime that occurs in this region. Now, nevertheless, this Northeast Wisconsin gang assessment claims that there are over 100 active gangs in Northeast Wisconsin, with at least 56 in Oshkosh alone.
What the fuck? What the fuck?
Like,
dude, there's not even like 56 Ace Hardwares in Oshkosh.
Oshkosh, for reference, is a city of about like 60,000 people, I think. So
they have to be counting groups of like four white kids that call themselves a gang as a gang. That's the only way you can get to 56, I feel like.
They must be. And like the ones that they list, like they just go, they mostly, throughout the report, they constantly reference, Latino gangs being a problem. They reference Asian gangs being a huge problem.
They've got to be like, some guy opened a sushi restaurant and they're like, that's the Yakuza restaurant. It's gotta be shit like that. I don't know how, because outside of like biker gangs, I don't think there's a major presence.
Yeah, for sure. And then, of course, you have Juggalos.
Oh, shit.
Who are one of the many gangs causing havoc on this, fucking post-apocalyptic wasteland that is northeastern Wisconsin, where it's every man for himself all the time, and he'll catch a stray bullet pushing a stroller down the street at 12 in the afternoon. So you have the Juggalos listed as one of the gangs to watch out for, except for some reason they are listed under the heading, quote, Juggalos, parentheses, big money hustlers.
That's how you know not one cop up there has seen the movie.
Yeah. Well, we picked up this 13-year-old who was shoplifting from the Quick Trip, and when we asked him why he did it, he said, I want my money! Okay, so I'm going to quote extensively from this report here. The Juggalos are a nationwide white gang, reported throughout the Northeast Wisconsin. That is their words, the Northeast Wisconsin. And associated with increasing levels of criminal activity. In Sheboygan, they are considered a structured gang with a member handbook describing ranks and duties, consisting of at least 8 members and 6 associates, ages ranging from 14 to 21.
Oh, shit. 8 14-year-olds? I hope you can handle it.
Yeah, someone call the National Guard. They are often seen wearing red, black, and white colors. They also paint their faces with black and white face paint, resembling a clown. The group follows the music and teachings of the Insane Clown Posse, and have been equated with the Deadheads of the Grateful Dead. They can be identified by Hatchet Man, parentheses, cartoon character running with a hatchet, and or BMHS for Big Money Hustlers Sheboygan. They also make the letters WC with their hands, which stands for Wicked Clowns. The Sheboygan Police Department reports that Juggalo members from Chicago recruited members in Sheboygan and established the Big Money Hustlers there.
Oh my god. This is one cop that is just lives in a fantasy land. He's the guy he's like Seth Rogen in Observe and Report, where he thinks he's like the last bastion.
Yeah.
He's the guy holding the barbarians at the gates, and it's just like kids that like ICP a bit.
Like, just imagine, like, this guy goes home and like takes like 3 Viagras and tries to fuck his wife, thinking that like he's like I'm the fucking hero. I'm saving the streets of Sheboygan from the big money hustlers.
His wife said, "Did you stop the Insane Clown Posse today?"
Don't worry, we're safe for now. He sleeps.
I almost chased down that 14-year-old at the park. He's pretty quick. I'll get him next time.
I'm sleeping with my service revolver under my pillow tonight. You juggalos, come for my family. I dare you. I like, honest to God, Cal, this is some of the most ridiculous bullshit I've ever read in my life. I mean, they claim that the big money hustlers of Sheboygan, fucking Sheboygan, Cal. I know that this means nothing to any of you guys, but like, just picture the most boring strip mall of a town you've ever seen in your life where nothing happens ever. That's Sheboygan. Like, this is not a haven of any kind of criminal activity. And they supposedly have a member handbook describing ranks and duties.
Right. Tommy, steal cigarettes from Quick Trip. That's like...
Like, I openly challenge the Sheboygan Police Department.
I want to know.
Show me this goddamn handbook. Show me a copy of the Big Money Hustler Sheboygan handbook, and I will donate $1,000 to the fucking Sheboygan Fraternal Order of Police or whatever fucking bullshit you guys want. It's just so ridiculous. Okay, guys, I think we need a little break from some of this legal bullshit. So we're going to get back to being regular polishing turds, and we're going to analyze a couple of wacky songs from ICP. How's that sound, Cal?
All right.
All right. So the first song I want to talk about is from a 1996 EP called Tunnel of Love. And this song is really fucking funny. I love it. It is called Super Balls.
Yeah.
See, Cal,
That's
like,
my shit.
see, they're not gangsters. They're performing a public service by laying pipe on the girls who are too ugly for us normies to go after.
So that again makes the earlier segment that much more ridiculous.
Yeah.
If one of them had just put an ICP element for a second.
Yeah, I know, right?
Guys, I don't think this is meant to be taken so seriously.
Right? And like, now I'm picturing like maybe they did though, and maybe the
like, have you heard of this Super Balls character? He sounds like the ringleader of this whole thing.
I am imagining that, you know, that same Sheboygan cop who made a big deal about taking down the big money hustlers of Sheboygan, when he goes home and fucks that ugly wife of his, he listens to Super Balls in his head, because he cannot resist the power of the wicked clowns. All right, that's just a really fun ICP song that like I never really had a chance to shoehorn anywhere else. And it's actually even funny. They recorded that Tunnel of Love EP in about 2 days. And it happened to be the 2 days in between when their Jive contract ended and their Disney contract began. So for 2 days, they were totally free to do whatever they wanted without corporate consequences. And they went in with Mike Clark and they recorded an EP that actually is honestly one of their best records.
I was going to say, this seems to have that vibe of like someone somewhere thinks it's the best thing they ever did.
One guy actually emailed me like kind of like chastising me a little bit for not talking about the EPs in general, but that one in particular. So to dude whose name I forgot, like, we finally went there, brother. I hope you're proud. And now the other song that I wanted to talk about is a little bit more recent. This is a collaboration between Insane Clown Posse and, wait for this, Jack White. With a little help. Yeah, Jack White of the White Stripes.
All right, that was one of the last names I expected. But,
right?
But hey, these guys open for Radiohead, so anything can happen.
Yeah, and like, look, they're both from Detroit, you know?
Yep.
So he knows that the clowns are only a phone call away.
This is Jack White's version of slumming it.
Yeah.
He wanted to spend a night hanging out with ICP.
Exactly. Like Jack White likes to like take like broken guitars that are like cheaply made and fuck around with them. And he's basically just doing the same thing here. Like he's just like, oh, what could I do if I took these like two really like stupid ass rappers and, put them in one of my songs with my guitar. But that's not all. That's not the only great musical figure that is involved in this song. This is all based around a melody created by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart.
Hell yeah, the OG.
You see, back in 1782, Mozart composed a piece called Leck mich im Arsch. I know I butchered the German, but Leck mich im Arsch, which is translates to English as "lick me in the ass."
I actually knew about this.
I'm sure.
I wish I could be surprised.
I'm not surprised that you have heard about this. But yeah, this is a real composition that Mozart wrote. You probably won't find it taught in that many like 6th grade music classes, but sometime in 2011, Jack White decided to take the melody that Mozart had written and play it on his guitar and have Jay and Shaggy rap over it. And I gotta say, fucking chef's kiss to Jack White. I don't like everything he's ever done, but this is a fucking great idea. Let's hear it.
For the most part, respected, cause he knows art, likes music, and he shows heart, loves chicks licking his ass when it goes dark. He wrote this, don't sugarcoat this, to get your ass licked off is a dopest. Call it a fetish, call him a freak, call him in need of a tongue on his butt cheek. Licked on the left side, lick on the right, licked down the middle, oh shit, that's tight. Lick, mick, arse, all through the night. We heard something, Mozart had wrote it, collabo style, had to bogart it. A little trick, perfected by freaks. Step one, spread your butt cheeks. The most hoes will cut loose for music. And since that's our game, I'ma use it. So we jumped on the Jack White track, that we can't keep these bitches' tongues out of ass.
Yeah!
I love it.
Dude, the fact that doesn't have a Grammy is just, that's how you know the Academy sucks.
Right? That song should be played at the Super Bowl halftime show.
That was awesome.
Yeah. Like fucking just what wonderful little musical ditty out of Third Man Records there. Like just way to really marry just two Detroit legends with completely different audiences.
That's like when you have a Mad Lib that just really works out.
Yeah. It's fucking beautiful. All right, well, let's get back to let's get back to something. Let's get back to something a little bit grosser than ass licking. So we have all these police stories that are cropping up. Arizona, Wisconsin, Washington, Salt Lake City. All these police departments are coming up with their gang assessments, and they're identifying Juggalos as a gang and going out and in front of cameras and saying this is a problem. Juggalos are terrorizing the community, and it kind of reifies itself and becomes more and more of a story. And eventually, naturally, all these police fantasies started to creep their way up to the FBI. Now, in early 2011, the Bureau began conducting its own investigation, which basically consisted of them emailing police departments around the country and asking them about their experience with Juggalos.
they can't be putting their A agents on this. I feel like this is one of those things like someone gets the email and he's like, oh, apparently there's this fucking clown gang everyone's freaking out about. Give it to Agent
It's like
Bob or
yeah, he's always like clamoring like can I be in terrorism today? No, Bob. Go get coffee. It's like
Finally,
can I look into this? Can I look into the Cosa Nostra? Can I look into this little drug ring over in Delaware? No, Bob, get the fucking coffee.
What can he not possibly fuck up? Give him this fucking clown thing. I don't want to deal with this.
Like, oh, can you handle the insane clown posse guys, Bob? Yes, I'll do my best. I'll email every cop in the country. So they sent out this survey, and it was just basic shit like, what have your interactions been with Juggalos like? How organized are they? What types of crimes do they commit? Like, just very kind of like basic stuff. To quote the author Stephen Miller, and a lot of this episode is built around his book Juggalo, which kind of chronicled the whole FBI debacle. He writes that, quote, the material that came pouring into the FBI's headquarters merged misinformation, police paranoia, sloppy journalism, and reckless accusations. And just as a couple of examples of these kind of like stories that got blown out of proportion, there was a kid in Nevada named Daniel Crawford who got busted for selling weed. However, because this kid happened to have a Hatchet Man tattoo, the crime was considered gang-related, and he got a sentence of 6 months in jail. Then there was also this story from 2008. 2 guys in a Kentucky prison beat the shit out of another prisoner who was known to be gay. People beat up, known gay people in prison. It's very unfortunate, but it's a thing that happens. But because one of these assailants had a Juggalo tattoo, the police also considered this a gang-related incident, even though, by all accounts, the motivation for this crime was what we just said.
Right. No, I hate this kind of shit. This is where it's not funny.
Yeah, it's like, this is just... The whole title of this episode could be Correlation Does Not Prove Causation. Mm-hmm. And then in March of 2011, the Bureau's Salt Lake City office, like, again, we're going back to this city, released a classified memo simply titled Juggalo.
Like an art piece.
like imagine like you're just like an ordinary FBI agent and like you see in your inbox like Juggalo. Subject line Juggalo. You're like, what the fuck is this?
Spam?
It's like, did my kid buy a new toy? Like, so this document called Juggalo cites a number of reports from local law enforcement agencies which claim that Juggalos are actually making serious connections with legitimate gangs. So here again, we are going to quote extensively from this document. Quote, the Lackawanna County Prison of Pennsylvania reported that the Bloods and Crips dominated the local criminal Juggalo groups and used them for recruitment. Another section said, the Unified Police Department of Greater Salt Lake City, Utah, reported Juggalo alignment with Kernstown's Bloods because they wear the same color of red. Juggalos don't have a color.
Right.
Like, it's like, oh, well, they're wearing red and the Crips are wearing red. That they must be connected.
Be tied.
Like, meanwhile, like, Psychopathic also sells like a blue ICP jersey, and then the Crips are running with them.
Well, that's the Juggalos are the chosen gang that's going to finally unite the Bloods and Crips.
They're the Uber gang.
Clearly.
Like, just... Oh, get this. The Juggalos are also running with the KKK, according to the Texas Attorney General's office. They say that Juggalos were associated with the 311 Mafia, claiming Ku Klux Klan affiliation. Additionally, Juggalos in Northeast and West Texas have been reported to affiliate in the county jails with dominant white prison gangs, such as the Aryan Circle and the Aryan Brotherhood.
I have no doubt that, again, some of these poor white guys that happen to be Juggalos might also be racist, but I know for sure that Violent J and Shaggy are not.
And almost all real, actual, like, Juggalos who take it seriously are not racist.
Yeah, the whole point, again, of that gathering is to get everyone together as equals.
Yeah. Also, think about prison, Cal. think about if you were sent to a Texas prison as a white guy. Like, just the nature of these prisons is that, like, a lot of times if you don't join up with the Aryan motherfuckers, even if you hate them, you might have no protection.
Right.
Like, I do not begrudge any guy who, like, just pretends to follow along with, like, some Aryan prison king because they don't want to get their fucking skull bashed in. Like, it's unseemly. Like, you don't want to end up with those guys are despicable. You don't want their tattoos on your body. But if you're facing like 20 years and that's your only survival strategy, that makes sense. But you know, like, just, I would think that would be a more likely motivation for a juggalo, like aligning with a white power gang, than any sort of shared ideology. So you have that secret juggalo memo, and this kind of basically served as the blueprint for the National Gang Threat Assessment Report, which, as we said, was released in October of 2011. So all of a sudden, this report comes out, and, you know, at first, like, nobody really takes it seriously, especially not ICP. Like, they're literally just like laughing it off, thinking like, oh yeah, we're fucking gangsters now. Yeah, and like, I have to say, like, I can't blame them for that either. Like, they're at the like initial like fun, you know, fun part of this story. But soon it became clear that this was no laughing matter. You see, the gang label had a direct negative impact on Psychopathic's bottom line. Venues began charging extra insurance for Insane Clown Posse shows, and Hot Topic, which had once been a cash cow for ICP, stopped selling their merch entirely.
Damn.
You know, like, Hot Topic was, I don't know if it's a big deal today, probably not.
It's a medium deal, but it's like anything else. You don't go to Hot Topic anymore. You just visit their website and buy it there.
Well, yeah, but like back in the day, you know, when we were
deal.
dicking around, like we went to the mall, you at least went into the Hot Topic to see what they had. I bought a number of shirts from Hot Topic.
I bought shit from there.
You know, like some were like actually cool bands. I bought a Minor Threat shirt at Hot Topic once.
I think the one I'm wearing right now might have came from HotTopic.com.
Your Candlemass shirt?
Yeah, they have legit bands.
Oh, that's awesome. But even worse than this was the shit happening to juggalos themselves. You see, here's the thing, folks. The gang label is very serious in the eyes of the law. Before 2011, having a Hatchet Man sticker on your car probably meant that you'd get followed for a couple of blocks by a cop car. But now it meant that they have probable cause to pull you over. Before 2011, a juggalo who got arrested for assault might get a few months in jail, but now it was a gang-related crime, and prosecutors could put you away for years. And this isn't just theoretical. A lot of bad shit really did happen to juggalos because of the FBI's designation. Here are just a few examples. So there's a great documentary on Tubi. It's called The United States of Insanity, and it is about the struggle that Insane Clown Posse went through with this lawsuit. And this documentary follows a guy in Arizona. He's a juggalo. He's like 40 or something. He has a massive ICP collection. So this guy had a son at a young age. He was separated from the baby mama. The baby mama lost custody because of some shit. So the son ended up in foster care. And he tried to get his son back out of the foster care system and get custody. But when a state inspector inspected his home, she saw that he had a room that was like wall to wall, you know, dedicated to juggalo shit, you know, as many people have. And based on this, he was denied custody of his son.
Yeah, that one makes me livid. That one hits close to home because I have a large collection of records, some of them with very questionable covers, and you know, if someone were to start paging through all of the grindcore shit and the black metal, they made like, a decision like this, I'd be livid. I'd be livid.
Yeah, it's really fucked up. But there have been a number of cases where child custody was lost over gang affiliation that was basically just being a juggalo. somebody was discharged from the U.S. military for having a Psychopathic Records CD.
Jesus.
There are tons and tons of stories of people who got pulled over just for having a Hatchet Man sticker on the back of their car. A lot of times these guys get put into a gang database just because they are wearing Juggalo merch. Like, it's really that fucked up.
It's the freest country in the world, y'all.
Yeah. You know, and then just to the point of like the sentencing aspect of this, because I think this is like probably the most dangerous. There's a guy in Colorado. He got into a drunken fight with his best friend and stabbed him in the shoulder. It's like, okay, this guy's probably not the greatest guy in the world to run around with. No one's going to disagree with that. But the guy who stabbed his friend, he happened to be wearing an ICP shirt. And based off of this, the prosecutor filed a motion to enhance the charge from assault to attempted murder. And the judge complied with this request. Like, that is a difference of years and years in prison.
Yep, that's frustrating shit.
Yeah, this is why I knew I was just going to be like fucking livid when we did this episode. We've already both had a tough week, you know, and like this is, don't worry, folks, it's going to get better. Jay and Shaggy, they started to hear these stories, you know, when they were touring, when they were just reading emails, letters from Juggalos. Like, this stuff starts to kind of filter into the psychopathic universe. But the problem was, like, they just didn't know what to do about it. Now, luckily, a chance encounter with a Juggalo saved the day. This Juggalo was named Ferris Haddad, and he happened to be a defense lawyer. One day, Haddad ran into Violent J on the streets of Detroit and gave him his business card, telling him to call him if he ever needed legal help.
How does that work? Because does Jay just walk around in his makeup?
No.
I don't know if I would know I was talking to Jay or Shaggy just in the street.
According to Mr. Haddad, he recognized Violent J by the tattoos on his arms. That he knew that Violent J has a big Detroit tattoo on his forearm, and you know, he probably saw the big husky guy, probably like talking in a real raspy voice, you know.
Yeah.
But there are also a lot of Juggalos that would recognize Jay and Shaggy without their makeup. There's just enough photos of them on the internet that like you can figure it out. But you know, he gives him this business card, and he says like, hey, you ever need anything, call me. And to his surprise, Violent J does. He's like, hey, you know, I actually have this beef going on with the FBI. So what if maybe you can kind of like do me a solid, help me out with that? And fucking, yeah, Ferris says, hell yeah, let's do it.
That's a dream case if you're a fan and a lawyer. Like, for two reasons.
Yeah.
You get to do something cool.
Yeah, you get to fucking take on the biggest institution that there is in the name of like your favorite underdog band. Like, this is a fucking movie.
Today is the day I get street cred for life.
Yeah, I'll get blown by fat juggalettes across the nation. And this guy really has become like a celebrity in the Juggalo universe. Like we'll see soon. He attends the gathering. Actually, let's get into that right now. So the next time we do see this guy, he is at the 2012 gathering of the Juggalos. And at this gathering, you know, Jay and Shaggy always hold their seminars. It's often called the Juggalo State of the Union. And at this event, they announce that they will be suing the FBI. Now, this is a crazy thing to do.
Yeah.
Like,
I can picture the crowd just being like, I don't know, but it's cool.
No, they were fucking, they were fucking into it. Like, they immediately started to chant their chant, like, family. Like, they were fucking
nice,
riled up. Like, he fucking gave, like, Jay gave like a fucking Mighty Ducks like speech that like that whipped up the crowd. But obviously, I don't have to tell you guys that the wheels of justice turn rather slowly, and suing the FBI is a very monumental endeavor. So let's see how Jay and Shaggy did with this and how they did it procedurally. So at this gathering, they set up a tent where Ferris Haddad, the lawyer, basically has a form that he passes out to Juggalos. The Juggalos kind of like form a line and stream into the tent. And what they ask these Juggalos is like, if you have any instances in your life where you got fucked over legally or discriminated against in any way, shape, or form because of your status as a juggalo, fill out this questionnaire and we'll get back to you. So when you're trying to create a class action suit, you need defendants, and you need the right kind of defendants, the ones that have kind of an unimpeachable record and like the story actually holds up, where there's a direct one-to-one causation of this FBI designation caused this person to suffer a specific legal consequence which injured them in this way.
Yep.
So thousands and thousands of juggalos fill out the questionnaire. They set up a website and they email the website, and you can imagine how much bullshit they had to sift through.
Yeah, for sure.
Like a lot of it was like, fucking manager at Arby's fired me. I only showed up late 3 times. Like, or like there were like fucking idiot grifters who just like wanted to like meet Jay and Shaggy, or like just on and on. But after sifting through like all the bullshit, they did get a lot of real stories, and these would later serve as the plaintiffs in this lawsuit. The next thing they did was they wanted to get the evidence that the FBI used to amass the conclusion that the Juggalos are a gang. So they filed a Freedom of Information Act request for the FBI to disclose the evidence that led them to conclude the gang designation. And of course, the FBI basically blew them off.
Mm-hmm.
So they sued to force the disclosure. The FBI eventually did release the records, but they were so heavily redacted that it was basically useless.
Yeah, it's so annoying they can do that.
Yeah, it's like, we'll just like black out certain parts.
Huge important chunks.
Yeah, it's like, because obviously this is it's not like we're like dealing weapons to Saudi Arabia.
Right.
Like, this is, I can't imagine that state secrets are at stake when you're talking about Juggalo gangs. But then, like, eventually they started to get some help, especially when the Michigan ACLU joined the psychopathic legal team. Now, the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, they are well known in this country for defending people's right to free speech, or like basically any time people's constitutional rights are infringed, they're there to save the day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it was with the help of the Michigan ACLU that Psychopathic was finally able to launch the lawsuit that officially challenged the designation of Juggalos as a gang. So one of the main things they wanted was for the FBI to retract the label of Juggalos as a gang. And here, the FBI kind of did something a little bit slippery here. Like, they got a lot of attention for this. They got some bad press for it. So what they did was, in 2012, they released their updated National Gang Threat Assessment Report, and that report didn't include Juggalos as a gang. And the ones since haven't included Juggalos as a gang.
Okay.
Now, at first glance, it's like you can say they tried to argue like, hey, you won. Like, we're backing off. But they never formally said Juggalos are not a gang. We were wrong to make that assessment.
They never will.
Yeah, of
I
course
feel like
not.
it'd be naive to expect that.
That'd be like George W. Bush coming out and just saying like, "Rack was a bad idea, man."
Oh, even in like my line of work, you're taught early, like don't say you're sorry.
No,
just tell them what you're gonna do. Like, just make the change and move on.
yeah, for sure.
Because the FBI is not gonna open themselves up to any sort of criticism.
No, that's like they're the fucking government. Like, people's careers are at stake over this. Like, which is why you have to sue, the government to like get them to do the right thing in a lot of cases. But again, like, just because the Juggalos aren't in the 2012 or 2013 gang assessment report doesn't mean that like beat cops on the street aren't taking this shit seriously.
Yeah, the damage is done.
Like, there was actually a guy, I didn't put this in the script, but there was a guy who, he had this whole side hustle where he would go to police departments across the country and deliver an 8-hour lecture on Juggalo gangs. Like, this guy made this as a fucking career out of giving like a fucking PowerPoint slideshow about how to identify Juggalos and like who they are and what kind of crimes they commit and how you can stop them.
That's really funny though, and on the scale of like making your living by offering absolutely nothing to society. That's right up there with like the fucking Kardashian family.
I know. It's a gigantic fucking grift at taxpayer expense. And I will guarantee, I will bet my bottom dollar that between attending that lecture or listening to all 7 episodes of this series on Insane Clown Posse, we will wipe the fucking floor with that guy in terms of the accuracy of the information that we deliver. Our fans are way more educated about juggalos than any fucking cop in the country. But yeah, so back to the lawsuit. And folks, here is where like I really wish that I could like just kind of like give you some kind of like dramatic denouement where like the two sides battle it out in court and they're yelling and they're pointing, and like one guy, shakes his finger at a witness and says, "How about this?" shoves a photo in their eye of J and Shaggy or something, and then the court gasps. But that isn't like how it played out. Like the truth of this story is pretty anticlimactic. The lawsuit was initially dismissed by a district judge. Psychopathic appealed to a circuit court judge who allowed the case to proceed. This is a big victory for them at the time. But then once the case was actually heard, the judge ultimately ruled against Insane Clown Posse in their final judgment. The next step would be to try to take this to the Supreme Court. So far, the Supreme Court has not been willing to hear the case of I don't know if it's actually called Insane Clown Posse versus FBI.
That'd be awesome.
But
if you postured it all up to be this is a case of, like you said at the start of this episode, like people's right to express their love for a band without being persecuted.
Yeah.
You maybe have something that would be worth the Supreme Court's attention.
Well, I kind of think you could make an argument that it is, like, because this is a very unique step that the FBI took. I mean, they're not openly saying like, if you listen to Insane Clown Posse, you're a gangster, but what they are doing is misidentifying a subculture based around music as a subculture based around violence.
Yeah.
It's just this one categorical error that had a disastrous consequence for thousands of people. And let's be honest, like with the way the Supreme Court is nowadays, like, we probably don't fucking want that case to be heard by them. They'll fucking order J and Shaggy to live in Guantanamo Bay or some shit.
Right.
But to be perfectly fair, here is the government's case. Essentially, they claim that Insane Clown Posse have failed to demonstrate that the FBI's action caused them direct harm. So in other words, when a local cop pulls over a guy because he has a Hatchet Man tattoo, when a local judge denies custody because some guy is a juggalo, when a local judge somewhere gives a stronger prison sentence because a guy has juggalo tattoos, that's not the FBI doing it. Those are just individual actors, like all making up their own minds,
Yep.
And I'm not a legal expert. Like, I can just honestly see that argument, but without the FBI endorsing as the top law enforcement body in this country, if they came out and said juggalos are not a gang, you guys are wasting your time, a lot of cops would listen to that, and juggalos would have a lot more standing if they tried to appeal unfair judgments in court. So ultimately, I don't know if legally you can demonstrate harm in the purely written letter of the law, but the FBI, to me, has a moral responsibility to behave better than this and to just do better research, honestly. If you're gonna, like, say these guys are a gang, do at least what fucking Cal and I have done and do a little bit of research into this culture, and you'll see, like, that shit doesn't make fucking sense.
There's just too many people, man. Like, that they're just sitting there going, we don't have time for this.
Yeah.
It's easier to just leave them as a gang.
It is. It is. And like, especially if like a guy, people are already making money off of it.
Yep.
And we'll get to it like another reason later. But just suffice it to say, like this lawsuit is basically done, and it did not go Jay and Shaggy's way. But even though ICP failed to conquer the legal machine, they did a valiant job fighting in the court of public opinion. In September of 2017, the group held a rally at the Lincoln Monument in Washington, D.C., where at least 1,500 Juggalos marched to protest their discrimination. That's right, there's an actual Juggalo rights rally.
Hell yeah.
At the very same steps where Martin Luther King delivered his I Have a Dream speech.
Before the series, I would have laughed, but now I get it.
No, yeah, for sure. No, this is a really cool thing. There's footage of it on YouTube. And by all accounts, this rally was totally peaceful. Like, maybe a few guys were toking up, but otherwise no big problems. And it led to some rare positive press coverage from the media to ICP.
Nice.
There's a video on Vice where this rally happened to coincide with a Trump rally that same day on the same, in the same park. So they can't help themselves. They're going to interview Juggalos side by side with like these MAGA moms. And you already know the story. Like, it's like, surprise, surprise, the Juggalos actually sound more reasonable.
Right, I know. They're not a lead-poisoned boomer.
Yeah, like, the Juggalos are talking about how, like, oh, we're all one big family, and we're here to support each other, and the Trump people are like, these immigrants are taking our jobs. Like, But ultimately, I find it tragic. Not only that Insane Clown Posse have lost this case, but that it took so long for anyone to take it seriously. A lot of you know that the FBI already has an ugly history of harassing artists like John Lennon and NWA, but going after an entire fan base is a whole new level of abuse. This is yet another example of state power being leveraged against a subculture that comprises some of the poorest, most vulnerable citizens among us. Whatever you guys think of American Juggalos, even the criminals, even the fucking jackasses, they still have First Amendment rights. And if those rights can be trampled on, how far behind are yours? And I guess like one final thought here is like, maybe the FBI are malicious jackasses, but there's also an institutional component to this, right? Throughout the country, a lot of these police departments have anti-gang task forces, that get public funding from federal institutions, and they often have to compete and write letters for those public funds, and those public funds, employ more officers on the street. Like, real people's jobs are tied to these kinds of grants. So there's an institutional incentive for law enforcement to hype up not just the threat of Juggalo gangs, but really any gangs. Mm-hmm. If you say like our streets are overrun with gangs that we can't control unless we have $3 million this quarter, that's going to get you some money. And, anyone who's worked for any company knows that like you do whatever you can to get as much of a budget as possible. That's
where you wish defund the police had picked a better slogan.
Yeah.
Because this is what it's really about. It's not about that we don't want cops. Yeah. We don't want this.
Yes, like stop the institutionalization of abuse in law enforcement.
Right.
Which is not a sexy slogan, but
no,
it's what we need.
Yeah, I don't need them having like near tanks, military level vehicles. I just want them keeping drunks from beating people up. Like
exactly. And I really do think a lot of this could have been avoided with just some basic empathy and very basic research. It should not take a lot of looking into Juggalos to understand like that the idea that they're a gang is fucking ridiculous. Okay, so now it's time to kind of cool things down a little bit. I'm going to share some of the results of this Juggalo survey that we did. We came up with it was a 10-question survey, and I gave them 5 optional bonus questions at the end, which are like a little bit more personal, I posted this on the subreddit r/Juggalo, as well as the long-standing Juggalo site fagolovers.net. Yeah,
I love that.
I know, right? obviously this is not a scientific poll. Like I don't know if this is necessarily a representative sample of the Juggalo community, but then again, the Juggalo community is incredibly diverse and multi-generational.
It's good that it's not scientific.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to ask a scientist. Those motherfuckers are lying and getting me pissed.
All right. Well, you know what? I see miracles every day, and like miraculous poll results we got here. All right. So question number 1 was, how long have you been a Juggalo? And here we got a nice range of responses. The oldest one went back to 1996. The most recent was, quote, a couple of months ago. But the median date range seems to be around like 1998, 1999.
And that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because that's when the albums we were saying were the best were dropping.
Totally. And they were starting to get like kind of national attention with like the Disney, debacle. And they were putting out their best shit in the late 90s. One interesting response, a woman who claimed to have been a Juggalette since she was 5 years old. She said that she first heard it from, quote, her mom's ex-boyfriend who she cheated on my dad with. This gentleman would babysit her and her sister and would blast the Great Milenko.
Wow. That makes me want to do an experiment. I'm going to play the Great Milenko for my near 4-year-old son. And I want to see if he enjoys the clown beats.
See if he enjoys the clown beats, see if he grows up to be a gangster.
Then we'll know. Then we'll know if music causes violence.
If any of you out there have twins, I encourage you to conduct your own motherfucking science. Raise them in as much isolation as you can. Give one of them a more or less normal upbringing. And the second one, you just blast the wicked clown shit 24/7 and just see what it does to them. I'm very nature versus nurture. I'm very curious how the fucking children, how do they work? Question number 2 was, how did you first discover the music of Insane Clown Posse? Cal, I'm going to ask you this first. We may have talked about this, but do you remember the first time you heard of Insane Clown Posse?
For me, it was Miracles. So all the people that responded to this, I'm willing to bet you it was more Great Milenko.
Yeah.
When their music videos started dropping and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The MTV crowd.
Yeah.
For all the hipsters I know that are from my age bracket, it was Miracles.
I knew of Insane Clown Posse before Miracles came out. I honestly cannot remember. I knew I heard of them. I have a weird moment of remembering laughing with my late mother about the fact that there was a group called Insane Clown Posse. Somehow it slipped into her boomer world that there was a group called Insane Clown Posse, and she thought that was so funny.
Probably reports on the news of people demanding that we take them seriously as a gang.
Yeah.
I'm glad she thought it was as funny as it is.
That could very well have been it. But definitely the first song I heard was Miracles, because that's our demographic. But as you basically just predicted, Cal, the vast majority of these responses were just basically from friends, direct introductions from people in their peer group, friends, siblings, friends of siblings. And it was usually a mixtape or a CD of some kind, which I think is just really awesome.
That also makes perfect sense because these guys have really funny one-off tracks.
Yeah. So
even if you didn't listen to the entirety of Great Milenko, there's a few songs you could be like, check this out. This is so funny.
Oh, 100%. You heard, I could see hearing a song like the Nedden Game and a 13-year-old laughing so hysterically that you think I got to check these guys out.
Even before that, if I had heard Bugs on My Nuts,
I
would have been all about that song for
God,
months.
I really wish we could relive as our 6th grade selves and play that song for us. We would have been fucking
It reminds me a lot of when someone first played the song Uncle Fucker from South Park movie.
Yeah.
How funny I thought that was.
I distinctly remember you listening to that CD on the bus.
Yep.
So that was the most common response. There were a few exceptions. One guy claimed, actually a couple of Juggalos claimed that they learned about ICP from watching J and Shaggy appear in WWF matches. this is something we haven't really covered, but they obviously they're way into professional wrestling. They were featured in the what was then the WWF for a while.
Nice.
And, you know, so like wrestling fans like see, hey, there are these characters on TV. Oh, wait, they rap? Oh, wow, that's crazy. One guy claimed that he became interested after watching an episode of Workaholics that is centered around the gathering of the Juggalos.
All right, I didn't know that existed.
Yeah, I think I watched this episode a long time ago. I totally forgot about it until he mentioned that. But it's what you think. It's like the three of them go to something that I don't think they call it the Gathering of the Juggalos,
right, but you
for
know
legal
what it
reasons.
is.
But it's obviously that, and like they get into it, and hilarity ensues. Question 3 was: have you been to the Gathering of the Juggalos? About 55% of them said yes, and 45% said no.
Huh, that's a little less than I would have guessed.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess it is hard to make a trip all the way out to like fucking Illinois
That
if
is
you live
true.
in Montana or whatever.
Now that I think about that, if you are from like California,
Yeah.
I don't think the idea of going to Hog In Rock or whatever it was called in
Yeah,
Illinois is
yeah.
super appealing, even for your favorite band.
Yeah, no, like it's a schlep, and you know, people have jobs, you know, like people have responsibilities or whatever, you know. Honestly, that's not even an interesting question. I realize in retrospect, I probably shouldn't have even included it on the survey. The question number 4 was, in no particular order, what are your 3 favorite ICP albums? This is one thing that I'm always interested in when I learn about fans of any group. So you probably won't be surprised to learn that in this case, of all the albums that ICP did, like of their 16 or so studio albums plus the compilations and shit, the original 6 Joker's cards dominated this list. The number 1 was a tie between Riddlebox and the Great Malenko, followed by the Amazing Jekyll Brothers, and no one else was really close.
That matches my preferences.
Yeah, and yeah, there's the odd vote for like, you know, Forgotten Freshness, the compilation, or one of the more recent albums. Actually, a few people voted for Carnival of Carnage.
This follows the exact pattern of most prolific artists that have, you know, 18 plus albums.
Yeah.
You have an initial, let's say, like 4 to 7 album run of what's really creative and got you all your fans.
Mm-hmm.
And everything else is probably not anyone's favorite.
You're right.
That is a vast majority of bands that last this long.
I mean, you will probably meet the odd Pink Floyd fan that will passionately argue that Obscured by Clouds is their best album.
Sure.
But like just
majority, no.
Yeah, majority are going to stick with Dark Side or Wish You Were Here or whatever. And then, you know, that kind of segs into the next question, which is, what other artists or types of music do you listen to? And holy shit, this is a really tough one to like kind of dive into, because even more so than the Nickelback one, which surprised me how diverse some of their tastes were, this was like that on crack. Like you got every conceivable genre almost represented here.
Let me give you my theory on that. I would say Insane Clown Posse is a little bit of an underground band.
Oh yeah.
So to
more than
even
little.
find them, you have to have that type of taste. You like eclectic shit, and you like to find your music and find weird, unique shit.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that it's pretty all over the map.
Yeah, and a lot of these are kind of older Juggalos that like maybe they started out with, you know, listening to ICP when they were 13,
branched out.
and then they branched out.
Yeah.
You know, like it's really difficult to like stay with that wicked shit forever, you know. So again, like you've got Wu-Tang, NWA, Frank Zappa, Mr. Bungle. Everyone loves Mr. Bungle. I'm learning.
Dude, if you don't like Mr. Bungle, something's wrong with you.
I love Mr. Bungle, but I didn't know how widely known they were.
Well, and I guess now that you say that, it is correct, because they have the Fun Circus album. Everyone likes that one.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people like California, even though it's kind of over the top. But then they've got Disco Volante. And that one's a weird egg, man. I don't meet many people that are super into that one.
I was never into that one. I'm mainly into the first album. But yeah, just all kinds of shit. There were a few people that kind of went out of their way to mention like Twisted or other psychopathic artists, but not nearly as many as I would have thought going into this. Like, I don't think that there's a ton of people who like only listen to psychopathic shit. 'Cause I don't think you fucking could.
Right.
It's just so goddamn samey. And then we get to some questions that are actually, I think, a little bit more interesting. Question 6 was, how many of your daily real life friends and family are fellow juggalos? And here, the most common response seemed to be either none or basically like between 1 and 3 people.
I can explain this exactly. Because this is what happens when 2 avid metalheads see each other in the wild. It's just a niche interest genre. And when I'm out in a metal shirt and I see someone else, there is this moment where you're like, dude, hey, we gotta talk.
Yeah.
At least do a head nod as we walk by each other.
Yeah, that's kind of a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's you don't walk around when you like something weird like this. You don't expect many others to. But then when you do meet the people that do, it's like you're instant friends.
Yeah. In fact, one guy claimed that he only had one Juggalo friend, but it was a guy that he met at the airport going back from the gathering of the Juggalos. He meets this guy and he happens to learn that this guy lives on the same street as him.
Oh, best friends forever.
Yeah, it's really adorable. All right. So question number 7 was, do you feel that ICP and Juggalos are misunderstood? If so, what is it that people misunderstand about the band and the community? I'm going to start off again by asking you, Cal, is there anything that like any misunderstandings that like you now realize you had about Juggalos as a result of like just doing this series?
Oh yeah, bunch. I thought it was all as dumb as Miracles.
Yeah.
And by the end, I don't even think Miracles is that dumb.
I totally agree.
I completely thought this was a lot dumber than it is.
Yes. I just assumed that there was no redeeming value to this music. I could never have conceived that they would have something like the Dark Carnival that's as sophisticated and thematically coherent as it is.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
we joked about that in those early episodes. Like, you don't start a series on Insane Clown Posse expecting to evaluate the themes of 6 concept albums.
Right.
I thought it was all going to be dick and ball jokes, and that was it.
No, that was a very pleasant surprise. And as far as Juggalos go, I think the biggest misunderstanding that I had of them was that it's more than a music community. Like, I thought it was just like these guys are fans of this band. But what I realize now is that like it's much more of a lifestyle and a community than it is a fandom.
Well, and on that community, I kind of thought of it as like an excuse to be white trash.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't that it was a family looking at the other and like, you know, understand each other. It was more like let's all go and just party as hard as possible and be basically waste of space.
Yeah.
And I don't think that anymore.
No, it's like, it's more about like, okay, maybe we do like to party and do drugs, but like this subculture, this group, this music allows us to feel more comfortable in our own skin doing that.
Yep.
Like it's not encouraging them to be that way. It's that like, this is who we are. And now I finally have someone who understands that. And, you know, like there are Juggalos who don't even like ICP really. You know, either because they like other psychopathic shit or they're just like, they're there for the vibes.
Right.
And that would have been something that would have been very confusing to me before I started researching this series. But anyway, like, so what did the Juggalos actually say to this question about misunderstanding? Well, not surprisingly, most felt that both ICP and Juggalos are misunderstood. They complained that ICP is seen as making stupid and tasteless music, despite the fact that they are objectively good storytellers and that the core of their message is fundamentally positive. Like they're literally telling you to follow God.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that was one of the biggest surprises, honestly.
Yeah. Like that's wild. Like, you know, like it's almost conservative what they're endorsing. One guy also made a pretty good point that, you know, a lot of the same people who made fun of fucking Magnets consider Yellow Submarine to be a classic. You know?
I love that.
Like, he's got me there, right? You know, like for sure. People complained that, like, oh, we're all seen as white trash, violent and drug addicts. A lot of people mentioned the gang thing. So clearly that has a big presence in their lives. But a lot of them also said that, like, there is a certain percentage of juggalos who really do fit the stereotype.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
We know they're there.
yeah. And like the argument is basically that, like, it's these bad apples that are ruining it for everybody. Cal, you're into black metal.
Oh, God, yeah.
Front and back.
We've got some severely rotten apples. And I still listen to their music, so I guess I'm inherently a little rotten myself. But
yeah.
no, yeah, I don't know. Every group has got their people that just take it too far.
Absolutely. 100%. Question number 8 was, have you ever faced any kind of discrimination from employers, law enforcement, family, or just regular folks due to being a juggalo? If so, can you cite some examples? And we got a lot of interesting responses here. A lot of them said that no, like, it's been mostly chill, or it was just like some minor comment here or there, or like someone made fun of me at a party. But then again, not everybody is as open with being a juggalo as others. And
I get that.
Yeah,
You get to a certain age and you gotta just have a job and a life.
yeah,
Yeah, you can't wear it on your sleeve like that. I keep doing this with metal, but I'm kind of like that. I'll wear a metal T-shirt, but I don't have long hair. I'm not all tattooed up. Like,
you're not gonna fucking blast Pig Destroyer at your cubicle.
Exactly. I know the limits of most people. It gets really tough when they ask you, what kind of music do you like? I always just go like classic rock.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna actually tell you.
It's like, oh god, yeah, Pink Floyd, what, Metallica, it's like, okay, yeah, go ahead, put on fucking Luke Combs, you stupid piece of shit.
Right.
Let's just get this trip over with. Yeah, but then again, a lot of them did say that, like, when they were in school, when you're more open about repping that kind of shit, they would get picked on a lot, for having Juggalo t-shirts, bullied, etc., etc. Like, you can imagine how that went out.
I probably would have been one of the people bullying them.
Honestly,
because
I would have
I was
too.
such a music. Well, I'm still a music snob, but I'm not an elitist gatekeeper anymore.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna pick on people for liking the shit they like the way I used to.
And like, we've talked about this on the show before. Like, I was basically raised to hate white trash. Like I was just taught that, like, this is the epitome of what not to be. Mm-hmm. And if there were out and out juggalos at our high school, which I honestly can't remember anyone.
There wasn't.
I don't remember there being a presence at all. Like, I definitely absolutely would have looked down on them, even though we were fucking loser stoners.
I know.
Back in the day.
I would have fit right in with their crowd.
I know. Like, we really a missed opportunity there. A couple people complained about, like, being pulled over by cops, or being harassed for having a Hatchet Man tattoo. One woman claimed that she was turned down at a job because of her Great Milenko tattoo. She also said that, she tried to get other Juggalo tattoos from local tattoo artists, but they did not want to do that kind of work on her because, quote, they didn't want to be affiliated with gang stuff.
Come on, man. It's not like she's asking you for a swastika or something.
Right?
Just fucking...
It's so dumb.
Yeah.
That to me rings that, like, they have an insurance company that's like on their ass 24/7. Then there's this one guy. There's this one guy that was a very gave some very lengthy responses. He's a very educated guy, and he wrote this quote: "For my master's courses around 2007, I presented a study on juggalos as a subculture and was basically laughed out of class. 12 years later, the same university published an academic study on juggalos as a subculture, and it was cited in a documentary."
Those fucks.
All right. Ahead of the curve, this motherfucker. He says, quote, "I had a Hatchet Man sticker on my old car, caught a felony charge for an ounce of weed in Oregon, weighed with the bags and pipe."
Oh, God.
Fuck those cops.
Right.
God damn it. Who fucking does that? Oh. Now, but this guy also says, quote, "On the flip side, I had a tattoo artist give me a Hatchet Man for free. I've been allowed to stay past closing at bars after I dapped up a cook with a Juggalo tat And a small town sheriff gave me a warning instead of a ticket, then said whoop whoop as he was driving away. A fucking sheriff gave him that is fucking cool.
The coolest sheriff.
Some cops are down. It was what's Shaggy's character in that? It was Shaggy's character in Big Money Hustler.
He's just Shaggy. I don't know. I forgot his character had a name in that movie.
Yeah. All I remember is how like every line of his rhymed, like, I'm gonna give you a pass because that hatchet tattoo looks good on your ass. So it's a good, maybe it does go both ways. All right. So question 9 was, how has ICP and or the Juggalo family positively impacted your life? And here we got a ton of really inspiring stories. Many Juggalos claimed that the community gave them a sense of belonging and purpose they otherwise wouldn't have had. Many also claimed that ICP's music and or the Juggalo community have helped them through their mental health issues, and a couple even claimed it saved them from suicide. I think one Juggalo summed it up best when she wrote, quote, I honestly think this community made me a better person growing up. As an outsider, it gave me a sense of belonging and helped me to teach love, acceptance, and welcome everyone, regardless of how different they might be. I believe I'm an extremely progressive and accepting person, and I think it's because of being a Juggalo.
Yeah, I believe it. I mean, we've listened to enough of their shit by now to know, I listen to plenty of music that is outright about expressing hate as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I can tell you for certain that is not the Juggalo message. That's not what they're going for.
No.
All the violence is tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
It is all like frustration venting more than anything.
Yeah, it's frustration venting. It's cartoonish. Like that's the thing. It's like it's a fucking joke. Like,
yeah.
And you'd have to be like a real stick in the mud to like. It's like, oh, he's really chopping up 17 dead bodies. Holy shit!
This guy wants to fuck dead girls.
It's like it's so obvious to a regular ass person like that it shouldn't be taken seriously, except when it should. Where you don't let life pass you by. Make the most of it. Appreciate the ordinary things in life. All right, and number 10, another really dumb question I included just because I needed 10 questions in my own head. I thought it would be fun to ask, what's your favorite flavor of Faygo? Cal, are you still sticking with Firework as your top?
I think so.
Top Faygo?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
That's the most unique one.
It's definitely the most unique of the ones that we've tried, which are admittedly small. They've got like 50 fucking flavors that they sell, but of the small sample that we've tried, I like Firework, but I'm still sticking with like black cherry or grape. I think are my top. When it came to this survey, there was no clear winner. Like honestly, nothing stood out. We got a few mentions for Rock and Rye, Cotton Candy, Red Pop, Vanilla Cream Soda, Moon Mist Blue.
All of them.
Yeah, it was pretty much like an even distribution. But now, finally, we get to the bonus questions, which, again, most of them did answer. Number 1 was, what is your age? Here, the youngest was 19, the oldest was 48, but the median was pretty much around like late 30s, early 40s.
That lines up exactly with what I would have guessed. A little older than us, essentially.
Yeah, basically the range that if you look at our like Spotify statistics, like that's our audience too. It's really odd how that kind of meshes up with the age range of a lot of our listeners. Next question, what is your gender? You'll be shocked to learn that about 3/4 of the respondents were men.
No way.
But I will say a disproportionately high number of trans people responding to this survey. So
outsider music saying about love and inclusion makes sense to me.
One person in their survey claimed that when I asked like how the music impacted your life, they said something about how it helped me realize I'm a girl. I want to know what fucking song did that. But like, good on you, whoever you are. Fucking great. I'm glad that ICP helped with this momentous part of your life. Question 3 was, what is your ethnicity? Take a wild guess what group dominated that one. It was almost all white. couple like Native American and Hispanic
I
people.
feel like ICP is some of the whitest rap that's ever existed. And I don't mean that in a shitty way. It is. Come on, guys, it is.
it's like the spectrum of white rap is like, for middle class people it's Macklemore, and for lower class people it's ICP, and for everyone in between it's Eminem. What is your highest completed level of education? The most common response was high school graduate, but I will say there was some pretty even distribution across the board between like some college, bachelor's degree, graduate degrees. Did not get any PhDs, but like, because I was so curious, I had to check, and I looked at the results of the U.S. Census question on completed education level, and it's roughly similar to what I saw with this ICP survey.
All right, so education level not below average, at least among who answered.
Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah, like this crowd at least wasn't all like fucking high school dropouts. Question number 5 was, do you do drugs? And about half said no. Most of the rest said yes, but mostly weed. Very few mentioned anything else. I'm honestly a little bit disappointed here.
I'm willing to bet you, though, if you had asked this question 10 years ago, you would have got a very different answer.
That's the thing. Like, because asking us 10 years ago what drugs we did versus asking us now, you're going to get a much more bland response.
Yeah, right now I'm down to nothing. I'd be a no column.
Yeah, no, I have a couple of PBRs on the weekend. That's my fucking exciting life. But yeah, no, like further testament that like these guys are fucking normal people. Really, that's what it all boils down to. What is a juggalo? A juggalo's like your fucking neighbor. Like that's
he just hasn't told you.
Yeah, that's
because you never asked.
That's the big fucking reveal of all of this. And now you, the listener, knows a lot more than anyone in the fucking FBI.
That's awesome.
All right, folks. Well, that wraps it up for this episode. Thanks again to all the Juggalos who participated in our survey. We really love hearing from you guys, and it was just really awesome to just read what everybody had to say. So our next episode will be the final installment of the Insane Clown Posse series. This will truly bring about the end of the universe. And a fucking ball of fire will come out of a rat's anus and barbecue all of your children.
Dude, if anything terrible really happens, we're in deep trouble now.
This is America. We have 3 school shootings
that is
a
true.
week.
All right, yeah.
We're really setting ourselves up for danger here. But no, we've got a lot to cover in our last episode. We're going to hear some of the things the ICP have been doing recently. How have they caught up to a rapidly changing hip-hop landscape? Like, how does J and Shaggy survive in a world with trap beats and all that shit? We're going to fucking find out. And we are going to just cover all sorts of like little vignettes, little stories, little just nuggets of information that just I haven't been able to fit in our overall narrative. And that includes the very oft-requested topic of J and Shaggy's beef with Eminem.
Hell yeah.
So it's going to be a very, very fun conclusion to this series. Be sure to stick around. And of course, if you liked this episode, give us a 5-star rating. Come on. Like, I shouldn't have to keep badgering you. Just do it, or I'm going to come to your house. And then I'm not going to do anything weird. I'm just going to politely worm my way in. I might ask if you have any like flavored seltzer water.
You got any Faygo?
Yeah, I'm gonna spill a little bit of the seltzer on your couch, but then like try to dab it with my shirt and lean against the couch and pretend that like you can't see me dabbing up the spilled seltzer water on your couch. And you'll ask like, what are you doing? Like, no, nothing. This stain was on my shirt before.
He's basically gonna come in and be a Tim Robinson sketch until you actually ask him to leave.
Yes, or until you give us a 5-star rating. So do that. Follow us on social media, polishing.turds on Instagram, polishing_turds on X, and polishingturdspodcast@gmail.com if you have any questions for us. All right, Cal, what are you grateful for today?
Being alive. It's been a week, man.
Yeah, fuck yeah, me too.
I am tired.
I had so much fucking shit happen to me this week that I don't even want to fucking talk about on the air. Yeah, I'm just grateful that like I didn't like go ballistic and choke somebody's child. That's what I'm grateful for. All right, gratitude, of course, is always on trend. You guys have a safe and wonderful Halloween. I guess that shit's coming up too, isn't it?
Hell yeah. I love Halloween.
All right. Good night.
How do you write a line like, "From Pluto to your anus, we are underground famous"?
For doom and 808 bass booms in your face. That's dope, man. Welcome to the world of rap.